Live.
Hello. Welcome to Self-Sabotage.
So today we're going to be talking about all the lovely ways that we love to self-sabotage, what self-sabotaging actually means. I don't know where to look. I'm going to figure this out one day. All the ways that you can self-sabotage, what it really means, and some ways that you can become aware of it so that you can autocorrect and get on a different path so you don't keep veering in that way. So who wants to take it? Sarah, I'm sure you did some lovely research. You want to start out?
I can start out. So self-sabotage is still basically one of those really yummy defense mechanisms that we have. There's so many, and self-sabotage falls in that same category, where it's basically like a tug of war going on inside of you subconsciously even, so you don't even always know that you're doing it until you continue to hear yourself say, like, shit, why can't I get that right? Why can't I get this together? Why am I always? And when you start catching yourself saying that, then that's typically a good hint that that's a thing that you are self-sabotaging. So it's a good point to kind of check in on that. But it's that inward tug of war because we really do want to succeed. We really do want to be skinny or fit. We really do want to have good relationships. And yet, so many things that we do that prevent ourselves, we get in our own ways. And it's usually a defense mechanism because of, and it can be for multiple reasons, a fear of rejection, need for control, fear of success, just kind of not knowing what's on the other side. So it's that constant tug of war of, I want this, and what happens if I get it? So let me just not quite get there, and that way I just keep searching for it, and then I never failed at it. Meanwhile, you did if you didn't try the whole time.
That sounds so much nicer in your little country accent. Meanwhile, you did the whole time. Crystal, what does self-sabotage mean to you?
I love self-sabotage so much. It's such a fun game. It's such a fun game that we play with ourselves. And I really find it to be such an artful way of the unconscious creating in our lives. It's something I celebrate because it's this for me, and also with my clients, and everyone, but this is what I work with my clients, is that the experience of, if it's in your face, if you're having is evidence of wanting. So if you can look around and see, I have all of these things, and I like this, and this, and I don't like this, and this, the things that you are in that place of, I don't like this, and this, it's telling you that the unconscious, it's a message from the unconscious saying, I'm here, I want this, and I'm living this out. So it's really kind of cool. To know that all of us comes to being, even if we own it or not. So this is what I love about the unconscious and how it comes out to self-sabotage us. If we're feeling like we're self-sabotaging, it is fully and truly an indicator that it's an existence in our unconscious mind. Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. So it's those experiences where you're like, oh, it was just fate that I met him and we are totally fucking going nuts together. Or it's just fate that I guess I'm destined for this job that drives me insane. And we blame it. We put the blame on other things rather than the taking ownership. But it's hard to know unless you understand what this unconscious shadow work is, where the unconscious mind is there saying, I want that. I like it. I actually get off on it. Unconscious mind likes the pain because it knows the pain. It's been in that pain or in that discomfort for years and years and years. And these have become habitual wires in our system.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to, know that a part of you is actually getting off on feeling shitty is very interesting to me. So I love the subconscious sabotage or unconscious sabotage.
I feel like fate is often interchangeable with luck too. I feel like
totally.
Yes. Or stuff like that.
Lack thereeof, the luck.
Yes.
The Irish. Do you guys remember that Disney movie? No.
What?
No. Oh, yeah, me neither. So one thing that I think is so important that people do is staying in whatever you want to call it, but kind of your genius zone, right? So making sure that you're doing tasks that come naturally to you, still pushing yourself outside of the boundaries, but not exerting extra energy on things that aren't naturally in your genius zone, right? So my question would be, how do you guys know when something is showing up as self-sabotage over showing up as something that's not in your genius zone? Does that make sense? Do I need to clarify?
I might need a clarification.
I think I know what you mean. But
so you go. Yeah, you go, Sarah. Let me sit with that.
Okay. So if I'm thinking of what you're saying correctly, for me, it would be if I have invested growth in that area and it's something that I'm passionate about, then I feel like that is part of my inner strength. Though if I'm self-sabotaging there, or if I'm not seeing the results that I want and I keep getting that wall, then that's where I'm probably self-sabotaging. I think if it's not something I've invested growth in, or I don't feel a love or passion for it, then that's where it's not my inner genius.
So, like, to put in perspective, for me, organization, as you both know, is not my strong suit. It's something I super struggle with. So organizing also affects everyone else's life that's in my little bubble, right? Or even not my bubble, I'm sure it's affecting other people. So like organizing is not something that's in my genius zone. It's not something I enjoy doing. It's not something that I want to put energy really into. And also I know that I'm like affecting other people by not being an organized person. So in business, I find that I'm often outsourcing it to other people to organize things versus is it actually self-sabotage because it's something that I'm repeatedly doing and I continue to ignore.
Well, are you fucking passionate about organizing?
Fuck no.
Yeah, so that's what
What a hypothetical question.
Is there something in organizing where if you were to just dive in and become a master of organizing, right, that your soul aligns with, in a lesson there or in an experience of, whoops, sorry, I actually answered a call. I meant to clear it.
Welcome to the podcast.
Would you be fed? Would you be fed in any way, shape, or form if you became like a master of organization? Would it make your soul sing?
Like Sarah, I think you're a master organizer, and I have so much respect for it. Like same with my sister, she's like a master organizer. Like just being able to put things in that flow, I think is so admirable, and I would love to be a part of that. And I don't want to do it. But I also think that freedom comes through discipline. So that's kind of oxymoronic there as well. Is that the right word? Oxymoronic?
Hopefully that's a word. That's a cool word.
We're gonna make it one if not.
Yeah, that's a really cool word.
We'll start
Here's oxymoronic once today.
No, but I was gonna say, I think the fact that you leverage it is still taking control of that.
Yeah.
Part. So even if it's not you doing it, it's not like you're ignoring it. You are actually acknowledging that and taking control of that. So even if it's not you, you're making sure it's done. Or it's not
See, and this is the beauty of this whole vlogcast is not everyone has two best friends like this, right? You're like, help, my life is freaking confused. When I hit this point, what am I supposed to do? So this is really like where we're excited to bring you into the mist and really be able to dive in deeper with you and be able to do these things. Because I mean, these ladies are my gold, so.
Same. Have you guys listened to Wayne Dyer about self-sabotage?
That name's sounds familiar.
Wayne Dyer has a lot of stuff on self-sabotage. Whenever I hear self-sabotage, that's what I think of, just because that's kind of where I first really learned the concept. And he's got tons of YouTubes and books and everything on it. But I know he said there's three main things that you need to consider that correlate with or that cause your self-sabotage. And that's one, our inner thoughts. So we all the time, words matter. We say this every week. And that inner dialogue is something. The other is your level of energy. Everything's energy, and that comes into play here. And the other one was self-importance. And I was thinking of this one, Crystal, when you were talking earlier, just because it goes so much hand in hand with that ego. And the fact that we tie so much of our identity into our title, the things that we own. And that's another thing that can cause that self-sabotage, is wanting to show up, that self-importance and needing to prove something to someone. And then that in itself can cause a lot of fears and a lot of walls to go up, which then in return causes us to self-sabotage, to protect that image, to protect that ego. And I think that happens a lot. And it's so crazy that even as you keep self-analyzing, you're growing, you're hiring mentors and coaches, which we all three always have coaches, mentors, something going on, groups, classes that we're taking, because growth is so important to us. And I know I told you ladies, you were in my life when I was going through it at the time. One of the coaches that I had didn't even realize I was doing it until she brought it up. And she's like, you have so much identity around always having the answer. And what happens if you take that away? And I'm like, you know, and that's something that I procrastinate a lot, because I need to have all the information before I go do something. Because if not, then I'm going to get caught not knowing something, and that freaks me out. And so that's part of a self-sabotage that I know I involved in. And it all comes to that identity of just people have expected that, or I've been hearing that language. And so I took on that identity, and then it's caused a whole line of self-sabotage from there until somebody brought it, like you said, Crystal, bringing it from that unconscious to your conscious. This is something you're doing. And it's like, holy shit, I did not know it, but you're right. I do that.
What was the first one you said?
Inner thoughts, your inner dialogue thoughts.
And what was the second one? Because that's where
your level of energy.
So that's really interesting, because I was just in a trauma course the other day, and we were talking, or the teaching was this acronym HALT, which is to be aware if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And if you are any one of these things, your window for tolerance, right? Or not even just tolerance, but to be able to process things from a place of conscious mind, right? The conscious mind. It gets smaller, it's like you're more in your trauma trigger zones when you are any of those things. So to not have the energy, right? So that's like beautiful to mention that we have to be able to understand getting in the body and know what's happening in our body, so that we can, if we're going to be on that trigger where we're going to create from an unconscious self-sabotaging space. So going into the body and knowing, do I have energy right now? Am I resourced right now? Do I need a nap? Do I need a meal? Do I need a hug? What do I need? Because
All of it.
Oh yeah, seriously, every day, like way too much. No, not even.
What was the L in Halt?
Lonely.
Yes.
Lonely.
Yeah, energy huge. That's a big one.
And your vibrational too, just kind of where you're vibrating, that energy comes into play as well. But I think it's funny you were saying that, because I had one of the coaches I've had before is a health coach, and she was really on me about eating every 2 to 3 hours, just a little small snack of some sort. And she said the same thing: if you let yourself go too long to where you're really hungry, then a lot of times in that moment where you're starving, you're going to make a snap decision and you're going to eat some shitty ass food that's going to make you feel even crappier. And then it is that thought process starts to diminish, and you make crappier choices when you're hungry.
Yeah.
Hangry.
Yeah, and I don't even feel like I get hangry. I really don't. But if I don't eat all day, I for sure will make a self-sabotaging decision. No doubt. It's like, I know this about myself. And sometimes I'll even not eat all day so that I can perpetuate that habit because I like it so much. Like my unconscious mind gets off on it so much. It's like, yeah, we're going to have fast food, and I'm not going to eat all day. And then I'll be able to give myself that permission tonight to like, just go fuck it. Yeah. And it's like, so it's really interesting, what I've been doing in all of these, in anything that comes up in creation that I don't like consciously, what I do is I practice existential kink. So what that is I go into the unconscious mind and I start to sit with the things that I don't like. And I start to begin to feel the essence of that unconsciousness, right? What does it taste like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like, just to be in that, ooh, I'm going to like get this burger that I hate that I'm going to eat, but I love to hate it. And it's so good to love to hate it. And I like let myself feel the pleasure of that unconscious pain. And the more I do that, this practice begins to allow me to go, I'm just going to eat and make a better choice. I don't, it takes the hook out of the unconsciousness and it brings us into the conscious space where we can then make more mindful decisions.
Love that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And
it makes me wonder, because I was thinking, as I said that, though, Tessa, I know you like to fast and do intermittent fasting. And so then I'm wondering where fasting comes into play. Though I think if you're doing that intentionally, you've got your vibrational energy up enough that maybe that makes a difference.
Yeah, and it becomes more of a conscious programming. So I'm consciously deciding not to eat versus unconsciously. That unconscious mind will come out of nowhere and be like, burger. I don't eat burgers. French fries, whatever it would be. No, it's interesting though, because in NLP or even Tony Robbins, he does the Dickens process. If you guys ever do UPW, and what that is it's like timeline therapy or time techniques, and it actually takes you similar to what you're saying, Crystal. Like if you don't make any changes, take yourself out to the future. Take yourself 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Who's it affecting? Who's impacted by this decision? How are you? Are you happy? And all these things. And it's crazy. Like even something as silly as I'm going to stop for Taco Bell. Okay, great. Sit back for 5 seconds. Imagine yourself stopping for Taco Bell all the time, because let's be honest, it's never just going to be this one time, right? It's going to happen repeatedly. It came up for a reason. So if you bring yourself out 20 years from now I'm eating Taco Bell. My husband's eating Taco Bell. My kids are eating Taco Bell. Great, we're all overweight, we're all unhealthy, my kid's sick, I'm taking them to the doctor because we are eating too much of this fast food and whatever. And so it's like taking yourself out to that future and making it real life. Totally, that hook is like not only removed, but a repellent as well. I think it's so easy for us to not future pace it and go there in the moment. So it's crazy. Also, the other thing with that it reminded me of was secondary gain, which is something we'll pin. So when there's something that's happening, if you have that secondary gain, it could be a deeper reason or something else that is triggering it. And so it's causing you to continue that behavior. So we'll talk about that more in the Into the Mist. Ooh, was that some acid or what?
I don't know if you even noticed anything till you said something.
It was mist.
It was
mist.
We have somebody that's on viewing right now stated that they're constantly tired, or if they wait too long to give themselves some relief or relaxation, then they tend to overindulge in letting loose too, and then have that same feeling of guilt. So it is a vicious cycle that we're all so familiar with.
Oh, that's Laura. Hi, Laura. Laura's numerology, her life path numerology is a 5. And so her whole experience is to be here and learn that freedom comes through discipline.
Oh,
so that's so interesting.
She's like, sorry, Laura.
Me too. I got a 5 in there too.
Yeah. It's funny you say that though, because I'm like, I look around and I'm like, I am not organized at all, but I always know where my stuff is amongst my chaos and my mess. I can go right to it. It just doesn't look organized.
So what are ways? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Organized.
To what?
It's not in like the physical realm. Your mental game is always very organized. Like I've never met anyone that can like internally pin something and like retrace back to it 20 minutes later when we go down 72 other pathways. And then you're like, okay, so we didn't finish this thought. Let's come back.
Like, let's come back here.
Oh, that did happen.
That was a thing. One thing I want to address though on Laura's to see if you guys have any tips or anything there. She says she's constantly tired in all caps. So do you think that's a form of self-sabotage, or is that?
Great question. I feel the same. I feel constantly tired. And this question came up last night, 2 nights ago with Jeremy. He said, you're getting off on it. That's what's going on. You get off on being constantly tired. How are you going to go into that? I mean, he's repeating me to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? I was so proud of him. Like, oh, thank you. Fuck, good. It's finally coming back to me. This is what I want. Yeah, he was like, you're getting off on it. Go into what are you getting out of being constantly tired? Who is that making you? What does that make you in the world? And so now, thank you, Laura, for bringing that up. She says, yes, it's how I know I'm doing a good job. How sick is that? For real.
Oh, yeah. See, so going back to that secondary gain, does that give you a reason to celebrate, or is there something that is positive that comes out of that experience? Because if there is a celebration or something, if you know that you're doing well, you're going to feel good, even if it's feeding your ego, then that's going to be something that you are super hooked into.
Yes, for sure.
We see that a lot. I see that a lot with in the real estate world too. And not just that, I'm sure most entrepreneurs though, if you ask, how's business been lately? Oh, good. Super busy, super busy. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's supposedly the term that means I'm doing really well. Mm-hmm. However, if you're super busy, you're probably not doing well. It means you haven't leveraged where you need to leverage. So work smarter, not harder. And sometimes we just can't get to that point to leverage just yet. But it's funny that that's our societal view of that means you're doing really well. It's, oh, I'm so busy.
I just watched this really short documentary. It was filmed in 2020. I don't even know if it's a documentary, but it's on Netflix. And it's called something. Yep. And he is the author of.
Yep.
Oh my God. Of a book. I'm gonna have a book later. But it's just a 1 series episode, and it's like the truth about being a millionaire or something like that. And it's this lady, and she authored this book about the Black woman millionaire, I think, or something like that. And the book publishing company told her, like, no one's looking for that. Like, we don't need to publish that. So she like took it to her audience, and they blew it up with her, became a New York Times bestseller. So she's like, I had the mansion, I had the courtyard, I had the Mercedes. And then I was like, then I need 2 Mercedes. Then I needed the upgraded Mercedes. And so she talks, and this has really stuck with me this week. She talks about, so she ended up getting rid of that entire lifestyle and just completely throwing it away and moving into more of a self-love place where she's at. I'm butchering her story. So sorry, I don't even know your name. And so one thing she talks about is one of the biggest acts of self-hatred that Americans tend to do to ourselves is we do something kind for someone, or even like what you're saying, we work harder, we work extra, we do something that makes us feel good. And then before we know it, it becomes an expectation, right? And then that expectation turns into an obligation. And then that obligation turns into entitlement. And then when it becomes that, we're completely repulsed by it. And I feel like that's so true. I love that statement. So especially with self-sabotage, taking something that starts out with good intention or good energy, or like, I want to work hard so I produce more or whatever. Like that's a great intention on its own, right? And then moving it into where it becomes this dangerous hook of now it is obligation, or now it is entitlement, and then it becomes exhausting. I feel like it's a total energy drainer when it hits that point.
Yeah.
Which is where burnout comes from.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
We've all been
Thing
there.
is, yeah, when we're in those places of like, okay, I'm consciously creating, or I'm unconsciously creating, whether I like it or not, what wants to be said right now is just being able to be with those parts of us that want to be heard, right? They want to be, so say, for example, okay, I'm working, I have the good intention to do a great job, work, excel my family, bring us prosperity, abundance, all these things, but then it becomes burnout. So it's like going into that and sitting with, come here, part of me that was the driver that drove me to this. That was like what are they called? Like, I don't know, like the inner slave driver, right? That's like, go, get it, get it, get it, get it. Like, okay, slave driver, what's going on? What do you want? How can I serve you? What's happening here inside of you? Like inside of us? What can I do for you? How can I support you? I mean, these are the ways, one way, right? One way. It's always go into it. It's always go into the feelings, go into the parts of us, hear what these parts of us have, let them share, hug them, be the hug of all hugs within yourself, parent the parts of you. This is like our own internal family. That's like this little girl, this teenage version of me, this 30-year-old version of me. It's all me. And they want to be heard and seen and loved, and they don't need to be fixed or changed, right? Even the part of me that's like, hey, let me sabotage myself all day, not eat, and then go be like, definitely Burger King, right? What's up with you, babe? What's up with you? You can have Burger King tonight. That's okay. But what's going on? Like, is this really how you want to show up in life? And taking a lot of people, we want accelerated, like, okay, I'm doing this shit and I want to get free of it and all this stuff. And there are plenty of techniques, NLP, the accelerated evolution, that I've been doing. Like, there's so many ways to like, get into and serve these parts of us. But the truth is gentleness, tenderness, and time is what really takes us to the finish line, and being in the experience of here, accepting all of ourselves, our whole selves to be, and being the holder, the parent, the lover to these parts of us that need presence.
I think that the way you explained it just like that, it really sounds like, is your masculine or your feminine showing up? So your feminine's going to give you that nurturing space, like, let's sit with it, let's go through this, let's just really be with it, versus the masculine is something's broken, let's fix it, let's do it, let's just get it done and move on. So I love the way that shows up. That's beautiful.
Mm.
And that's
Yeah,
that inner dialogue again showing up. Just how important that inner dialogue is in when it comes to self-sabotaging too.
And then it's like amazing. Like Laura said, I'm tired. Like I wake up tired. Like, well, no shit. Like we're doing this all day. We're fighting internally, every way, quantum ways, like all over the place. No wonder we're fucking tired. So
yeah, how many tabs do you have open all day, especially as women? I feel we really believe that we are like expert multitaskers, whether we want to own it or not. You know, women are just like, I'm doing this, that. I'm doing a million things. I have a million tabs open. And how do I get off on doing that? Mine is I'll do it. And then I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. And I'll pause and I just won't do anything. I'll stop cooperating with myself and with anybody. It's like, okay, now I have to pass out, you know? So I did that a lot. And then I finally learned I have to learn when to say no. I have to learn. And I went into it. I have so many tabs open. I have so many projects going. I have so many things holding space for so many people. And no, I have to learn how to be here so that I can even give to any of these things that need me, you know? Laura said, I believe that I force myself to work harder than is physically possible to make up for the lack of drive I had as a student in high school. It's like I'm punishing that girl for not trying harder. I wish I could just be with knowing I did the best I could with what I had back then. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
what a beautiful self-awareness. And
yes.
I don't know if you knew that you were self-aware of that before, but now that you know that, like Crystal was saying, like, take her, give that high schooler a hug. Like, everyone does the best they can with the resources they have available. High school can be traumatic. It can be an incredible experience. And also it happened, no matter what, it's done. So just take that little high schooler and give her a hug and a kiss and tell her, you did good. I release you. I don't need this hesitation or whatever it is. What was the word you used? Not procrastination, whatever that word was.
She's punishing her.
Yeah.
For not working harder.
Oh yeah, the punishing.
So this kind of goes back to like our journal that we were talking about the other day. Write a letter to her. Like, honestly, sit down, get quiet with yourself and write a letter to your high school self. Tell her, thank her, do ho'opono, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and then release her, because there's parts of her that served you and that were necessary during that time, and it doesn't have to hold you back anymore. So I love that for you. Have fun with her.
That takes us in. That's a good transfer or segue into what would be our extended right now too, because we're about at the time that we would switch to that. And I know one of the first things that we pinned was talking about that secondary gain. And so just like you said, Tessa, you know, there's something that served her at that age for her to be the way she was then. So it's not worth punishing. There was something she was gaining from that. And now there is a gain from feeling like you have to work extra hard and prove yourself that's when you're doing good. So just for all of us, there is some kind of secondary gain. The reason we have self-sabotaging is because at some point in our life, it served us. The different ways that we self-sabotage did serve us. And that could be through the need to take control. And when we took control, then we were no longer vulnerable to other people. And so that was the way it served us. Or if we got ignored or we didn't feel like we got the attention we needed when we were kids, unless our parent was angry, then maybe that's somebody that wants to pick fights or get someone angry because back when they were younger, that's the way that they got noticed. And so there are little things that it is mostly unconscious until you bring it to your conscious awareness, but it has served us at some point. Just like I had a therapist one time talk to me about, it was a marriage counselor actually that I was going through school with. and my professor, and he said even something as small as silence can mean something so different to different people depending on how you grew up. In some families, silence was just our calm at the end of the day. And in some families, if it's the house is silent, then that's because there's tension and because people are ticked and they've cut off communication. And so silence means something completely different, just depending on how that showed up in your life before. Mm-hmm. So those old stories and that wiring and conditioning has a huge play in how we self-sabotage.
Oh, totally. So what is your guys' favorite way to self-sabotage?
Fun one.
So many ways.
I know.
I know.
I talked about one of mine earlier. Another one I think for me is I tend to roller coaster a lot. So I will be like nose to the grindstone and just really feeling like I'm being productive, work. It's all about work until I do reach that burnout. And then it's like, I don't want any of it. I'm not going to do anything. I just need, and honestly, it's rationalizing is where it shows up a lot for me. Because then it's like, oh, well, I just need the break. And life is more about family and friends and experiences. And it's not about money anyways, until I get to a point where then I start freaking out and I'm like, oh, I need to get more money. And it's like, well, I need money to offer. I've got to have money. I got to work. You got to show up. You got to reap what you sow. And then I do that until I get burnout. And it's like, well, life shouldn't be all about work. I don't work myself to death. And so I rationalize to get myself out of each thing instead of finding a balance. It's a constant roller coaster.
What about you, Crystal?
Yeah, so many ways. I think some that have shown up. I think the big players, the big ones. The heavy hitters.
The whole team.
What are those called? The MVPs.
The all-stars. Yeah.
Totally. The all-star self-sabotagers are, it's come up for physicality as far as I spent years feeling in chronic pain and tired. Yeah, for sure. And then being, diagnosed with fibromyalgia. It's interesting, now I'm pretty tired lately. I'll say that. I've got a lot going on, but there's something that's really arising now that I got reflected that, the other day. It's reminded really, because I've had this thought before. It's like, how is this serving you? On some level, I know there's a little crystal in there that knows if I'm physically feeling tired or achy or in pain, that I will get my attention that I want, whether I give that to myself, right? Whether it's me giving it like the call, like, okay, you need to give it to yourself now, or if I'm getting it from my partner. But if it shows up physically for me, which makes a lot of sense too, because, a lot of the work that I do is about really going into the body. So that too, it's like this catalyst to just being really present in the body as well. And my body's very sensitive. But then also there's that experience of, they say that people that have been diagnosed with this fibromyalgia or whatever, they don't just ask what's going on physically. They go to what happened emotionally. Have you experienced trauma? They're starting to connect that in ways that haven't been connected in other Western, right? Western way of medical situation. Fibromyalgia is kind of the I don't know this for sure, but it's one of the ones that they acknowledge this can be from emotional stress that has happened in your life. So I think that there's some self-sabotage in that for sure. And with me is, I know that I give myself more attention and then I ask for more attention or love and care, right? The little crystals asking for more love and care when the physical ailments are present. But it's very interesting because it hasn't been, I went through years and years and years of pain, physical actual pain, and then it went away, with my emotional state changing, shifting, traumas being dissolved, loved, made peace with. So I'm not in achiness all the time. Now I'm dealing with the tiredness, and we're going to find out, what that's all about. I'm positive. So that's that's my heaviest hitter, I think, for sure.
So as I'm sitting here listening, I feel like self-sabotage is just another way of giving ourselves permission. Permission to take a break, permission to celebrate, permission to feed one of our 6 human needs. Just like the fact that we think that it has to show up unconsciously for us to give it permission is really sad. It reminds me of Brittany. Every time I'm going to say we have this amazing friend. It's Crystal's friend, but we have but we had this time and she had a shadow that came out to play. And so when we were talking about the next day, she was like, oh, she came out to play. And like, there wasn't any like remorse. Like it was a funny thing. And that line has stuck with me forever. So it's like, oh, when self-sabotage shows up, like Crystal said, like, oh, she wants to play. Okay, what do you need? Let's get into it.
She just showed up today. Tessa, what do you think yours is? What is your...
Mine, I'm not sure the right words for it, but is definitely ignoring things until it demands my attention. So I think like all these little things pile up and I'm like, I don't need to spend time on that. Like that's so little, it's so tedious. And then when it becomes this big fire, I'm like, okay, I can put that out. And so I think it feeds ego and also gives me permission to be like, oh, I took care of that. Even though it sucks every time it shows up. Oh my God.
You show up first and take care of it and you're like, okay, I'm a badass. Got that. Check. Next.
So what does it give you? Let's talk about that. How did these serve us, right? How do they serve? Like, what does that give you, Tessa, when you're like, no, I don't have time. And then you fucking like do it super quick, masterfully, all condensedly. Like, how does that make you feel later?
Well, we talked about the 6 human needs. So for me, it checks off half of them. So let's talk about that real quick. So 6 human needs, if you guys haven't heard about it, is from Tony Robbins. And so there's the 4 main ones and then the 2 that we want to aspire to go towards, right? So it's either going to be certainty and uncertainty, or a variety, the spice of life. And then it's going to be love and connection or significance. So there's always 2, either certainty, uncertainty, love and connection, or significance. There's always 2 that we're feeding out of those that have our highest attention. And then the 2 that we're aspiring towards is growth and contribution. So when you ask that question, for me, I'm like, okay, well, that checks off uncertainty because I don't know when it's going to pop back up, which I thrive on. I love uncertainty. For me, it feels like very with the flow, even though I caused it. So it's feeding uncertainty. It's feeding significance because it feeds my ego and it feels good taking care of it in the moment. And then I think a lot of times it also feeds contribution because it goes back to, I did this for whoever it's affecting. And so now we are taking care of it as a community, or I took care of it with this community. So if it's feeding 3 out of 6, no wonder I'm fucking addicted to it. So yeah, it's really interesting to think about though. So certainty is knowing the end result, even if it's a self-sabotaging result, right? So if I eat this pie, it will feel good in the moment. Even if I feel like shit later, I know exactly what's going to happen when I eat this pie. Where you have uncertainty is like, you never know what's going to happen. It's like, that was a weird, I was about to do a really weird hand motion for that. But you never know what's going to be thrown at you. And so you love like the variety and just dealing with it as it comes. And then you have love and connection. Like, is this creating a bond with someone? Is this creating more love in my life? Even if it's not, in this moment, does it appear to be creating more love in my life? Or it doesn't have to be love. It could be a connection, a relationship, feeding, anything like that. And then the fourth one going into significance, which is really our ego. With our significance, I think we have two ways of attacking it. We can either build our tower so it's higher than everyone else, or we can knock other people's tower down along the way so we appear higher than everyone else. So how you're feeding that significance. And then the last two being growth. Like Sarah always talks about, we love growth. We're very focused on wanting to consistently grow and expand and push out of our boundaries. And then the last one being contribution. Is this helping my community? Am I giving back to society? So it's really interesting. Next time something pops up for you, figure out, okay, of the four, which is this really feeding? Like, if you decide, what's a good scenario? Someone throw out a good scenario.
To save or purchase something.
Okay, yeah. So say you want to go buy that new Gucci purse, right? And it's it can be either something that like say you walk in Gucci store and you're like, I'm going to buy that $2,000 purse. So that's feeding your variety because you didn't know it was going to happen. It's exciting. You have that kind of high in the moment, right? And then also it could be either one. It could be serving your significance because people are going to see this nice, beautiful designer bag on you. Or it could be loving connection because other people in your little circle will have something to talk to you about. You'll have a high designer purse to compare and it'll put you something in common. So it could serve more love and connection for you. And also it could be certainty for you. It could be, if I buy this, I know exactly how I'm going to feel in the moment, after the moment, like all of that. So there's so many things that can happen. So yeah, it's really curious. Next time you feel that a self-sabotage moment pops up, like Laura, I don't know if you're still around, but next time you feel super tired, get honest with yourself. Like, what is that serving? Am I feeding certainty or uncertainty? Am I getting any love and connection or significance out of this? And then is it also contributing or causing growth in myself? That just made me so thirsty. I feel like I just talked for like 10 minutes straight.
I'm so thirsty. Did you know, I'm pretty sure, I think Tony Robbins got a lot of the 6 basic human needs from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. There's definitely, when I was looking through them, I'm like, okay, this sounds familiar. When I was going through and checking those off, there is a lot of mirroring. There's a few differences, though they mirror and match so much that there's something to that after all this time, because that was back in the early 40s when he developed it. He originally only had 5, and so a few have been added since then, but we're floating between 6 to 8 basic human needs, and since 1940s we haven't had anything extra added. So there's definitely something to definitely something to these needs. And you actually have or tend to gravitate towards just kind of like love languages. Like, we all have those love languages and feel loved, but some of them just strike us a little bit stronger. And just like the 6 basic human needs, that we need all of them at some given point in life, but there's a few that just we gravitate more towards. And after this is something, when we do go into the mist and we have our extended official group, that's more of a closed group later on, we'll have a separate, smaller private group for you as well. This is where I'm going to post it in our group that we have now, a link to where you can go take the test. Tony Robbins has one where you can take the test to see what your biggest driver for your human need is. He's got a few descriptions, but even when I was reading them, I was like, all of these are me almost. So then when I took the quiz, one really stood out. And as I was answering the questions, I was like, oh, this is noticeable that I'm really driving towards one thing a lot more than the rest. So I'm going to post a link in our Facebook group page after the podcast so that whenever you guys get a chance to take the test and see what your biggest human need is, it's pretty interesting when you know that, when you bring that into conscious, then it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of shit that I do because that is such a need for me.
Yeah, and then also remembering the significance. Which way are you feeding your significance? Are you building your tower, or are you knocking someone's tower down? Because that'll also give you a lot of insight in how you're going to self-sabotage.
I think he calls it being in resourcefulness versus unresourcefulness as far as how you're going about it.
Well, it's because every need has a superpower and a shadow.
Yeah.
So it's like, am I building my tower, right? Superpower. I know my need. I honor my need and I make it happen. Or am I just like back and trying to fuck other people over because it makes me feel significant? Or am I like creating a whole bunch of certain uncertainty, right? By in my shadow, by sabotaging my relationships? Or am I creating uncertainty but in healthy ways, like, traveling or finding variety in ways that I can? So each and every single emotional need has a shadow and a superpower. So it's important to, once you start to understand yourself better, it can be a little bit of a mind fuck. Like, okay, now how am I really, right? Whoa, shit, is that uncertainty, or am I actually trying to get certainty out of this one? I mean, you can play a little game with yourself and it can be silly, but at the same time, yeah, it's important to know, am I showing up empowered here, or am I showing up in shadow and sabotaging myself because I actually need this thing? I need to feel love and connection. And am I only getting am I getting love and connection through being sore all the time? Like that, right? Like, why am I sore all the time? It's because I need love and connection. Okay, how about I go get love and connection by just asking for it, and or doing it in a way where I'm not sore all the time. Right. So it's a really great framework to go in and have that self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to like Tessa was saying, where it's kind of sad that that's what we naturally inclined to do, is sometimes self-sabotage to get that need, instead of just being like, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling a lack in this need, so let me go ask for it, because that makes us vulnerable. And so a lot of times I think that's at one of the core of it too, is now I'm showing up vulnerable or not strong. Now I need something from someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's meeting of the need through, obviously this can show up in all the different ways, but meeting of needs through other people, right? Getting it through the channel of other people doing that, versus I provide these needs for myself. I feel these needs for me. So, and that is like when we really step into the practice, the spiritual practice, the emotional, mental practice, physical even, of radical self-love, to say, I'm gonna look at me and I'm gonna honor these feelings. I'm gonna listen to these little ones inside of me and I'm gonna care for them, not these other people around me. They don't need to hold space, give me anything, do anything. I've got to care for this being that I am.
Yeah.
Radical self-love.
Radical self-love.
And it has to be, because that's something I know, like I logically know that I need to give that love. And I don't need to depend on someone else to fulfill something within me. Though, to actually be in that space to where you don't feel like you need to hear certain words, or for someone to look at you a certain way, or to touch you, or to provide for you, and to always be in that where I can do this myself, is definitely, it's a radical place to be. I think it's a work in progress. A lot. Because I do too. And I will catch myself and I mentally know why am I depending on him to do this? Why am I depending on her to give me this? Waiting for her to say something, him to say something, when I've got to self-inflect here and see what's going on. Where is this need coming from? Why am I needing it from that person? Why do I need them to acknowledge me? And it's that inner dialogue again. But I think there is something with, you can logically know, but it's going to take a lot of practice to get there.
Yeah.
It's growth.
Totally. And it'll never go away. This is the ongoing game of life.
You're right. It can be so annoying when they don't acknowledge you, though, when you're how great you are.
Totally, Laura.
Totally. It's so frustrating.
Laura, you're great.
She is.
Why don't you see how great I am?
Sunshine. Laura is sunshine for sure. Yeah.
Do you guys know what your one of your biggest human needs is? Do you have some that stand out to you more than the others?
Mine is uncertainty and significance.
So I want to say probably I've really I've grown into other ones. So for the last, I want to say I've been growing out of and unfolding into from growth and love and connection. When I first took this framework, that's where I was. Those were my values. And now it feels like growth and contribution. Yeah.
Those are the really yummy ones too.
Spiritual ones.
Yeah.
It feels really good, you know? I mean, certainty, definitely, I get a little, certainty still calls to me pretty strong.
I get a little,
You know, I'm over here hanging with some major uncertain players, so. So I'm like, wait, can't we just be certain? You know?
Right.
So it's in my face, but my heart, it needs to be in contribution and it needs to be in growth. And I feel fulfilled there. Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
When I took the test, love and connection stood out the most. So that one was my highest one, which when a couple of years ago, I did an exercise to write down my top 5 personal values, and connection, quality connection, was number 3 of my 5. So that definitely was there. So that made sense to me. And I feel like it only gives you one when you take the quiz. Though if I'm looking at certainty versus uncertainty, I do gravitate more towards certainty than uncertainty. But I feel like my uncertainty is pretty healthy and fulfilled. And we're military, so every few years we move and we don't know where we're going. And for our anniversary, we typically try to do something new and adventurous, like a whitewater rafting, hot air balloon ride. We went parasailing this year. So
you guys are amazing at that. You're so
yeah, we do the healthy side of the uncertainty. So I feel like that's pretty fulfilled. So I don't have too much of a need for that. So the certainty for me is definitely more of a driver, I think. And then of the growth and the contribution's been speaking to me lately. So that's one I definitely want to be focusing more time and attention on, which I feel like this helps me do.
Yeah.
Sure.
And our plans for the retreat that we have pinned and kind of hinted at, which will be down the road. Though it's already in existence. We've manifested that out there. It's twirling in the universe, and so that I feel like it's going to be twirling around the universe, just waiting for us to like grab and pull it down.
Twirling,
and that's going to be a huge contribution. I feel like that's going to be a big fulfillment for that need.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Ditto on that dream boat for sure. Yeah, not dream boat.
Can you see it twirling?
Yeah, I do. I feel it twirling.
For sure.
Well, I think that wraps us up today with self-sabotage. We hope that you guys loved it and you recognize some things that you're self-sabotaging in your life. Or maybe people around you are self-sabotaging, and it gives you space to give them more grace rather than you're self-sabotaging. It doesn't usually show up very good. But yeah, any other final closing thoughts?
I don't think so for me.
Go into the sabotage. Go into it. Enjoy it. Get off on it.
And
That's
with
good
that,
final words.
say goodbye.
Bye, Laura.
Bye, guys.